The Financial Times published a report based on leaked Iranian military documents, confirming what Western intelligence agencies had been tracking for months. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps secretly purchased a Chinese-built spy satellite in late 2024, a 112-kilogram reconnaissance platform called TEE-01B, and used it to photograph American military bases across the Middle East before and after major missile strikes in March. The satellite captured images of Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia on March 13th. On March 14th, President Trump confirmed that American refueling aircraft at that base had been damaged by Iranian projectiles. Iran was watching the base from space before it attacked, and the satellite that provided that capability was built in China, launched from China, and sold to the IRGC for $36.6 million. That satellite, however, is only one component of a broader Chinese intelligence architecture that has been supporting Iranian military operations since the war began. China has not fired missiles or launched drones. Instead, it has provided Iran with the ability to see, navigate, identify, and track American military assets across the region, using systems that the United States cannot jam, cannot intercept, and cannot destroy without risking a direct confrontation with the world's second-largest military. 4 separate Chinese systems are now operating inside this conflict. A spy satellite providing overhead imagery, an AI targeting platform converting that imagery into strike coordinates, a navigation network replacing GPS with a system the United States cannot disrupt, and a 30,000-ton surveillance ship positioned in the Gulf of Oman, monitoring every movement the U.S. Navy makes. Together, these 4 layers form a complete intelligence stack, and China has supplied all of them while maintaining that each one is either commercial, civilian, or operating within international law. The TEE-01B was built by Earth Eye Company, formerly known as Beijing Mumei Starry Sky Technology. It launched on June 6, 2024, from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in the Gobi Desert aboard a Galactic Energy Series 1 rocket and entered a sun-synchronous orbit at approximately 545 kilometers altitude, completing roughly 14 to 15 passes around the Earth every day. Each orbit takes about 95 minutes, and the sun-synchronous trajectory means the satellite crosses each target at a consistent local solar time, typically mid-morning, producing imagery with uniform lighting conditions that simplifies analysis and comparison across repeated passes. Its camera system captures panchromatic imagery at 0.5-meter resolution with a swath width of 14.8 kilometers, and multispectral imagery at approximately 2 meters. At 0.5 meters, an analyst can distinguish between fighter jet models on a runway, identify individual Patriot missile batteries, and count fuel trucks. Iran's best domestic satellite before this purchase was the Noor 3, with an estimated resolution of about 5 meters, roughly 10 times less capable. At 5 meters, an object on a runway is visible but not identifiable. At 0.5 meters, the aircraft model, weapons pylons, and engine activity become distinguishable. The IRGC paid 250 million yuan, roughly $36.6 million, and received the satellite through what Earth Eye Co. calls an in-orbit delivery model. The satellite was launched and tested in orbit first, then control was transferred to the buyer. No physical hardware crossed a border. No export license was required for a satellite already in space. The IRGC Aerospace Force finalized the agreement in September 2024, 5 months before the war started, through a contract signed by a brigadier general within the Guard Corps. The deal included ground infrastructure. The IRGC received access to commercial ground stations operated by Emposat, a Beijing-based satellite services company with tracking facilities across Asia, Latin America, and other regions. Emposat handles command uplink, telemetry, imagery reception, and mission planning software for the satellite, meaning Iranian operators do not need independent ground infrastructure to task and receive data from TEE-01B. U.S. congressional assessments have linked Emposat personnel to the PLA Aerospace Force through career overlap and institutional affiliations, and the company's leadership includes individuals previously affiliated with the state-owned China Academy of Space Technology. Earth Eye Co. itself employs staff affiliated with a group of Chinese defense universities known as the Seven Sons of National Defense. The satellite was manufactured by Changguang Satellite Technology, a company that was sanctioned by the United States in 2023 for allegedly selling imagery to Russia's Wagner Group, and again in 2025 for providing satellite data to Yemen's Houthis. The transaction followed a commercial pathway, but the institutional connections between the companies involved and the Chinese military establishment are extensive and well documented. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs told Reuters that the claim Iran used the satellite to target American bases is not true. Earth Eye Company has stated that TEE-01B was intended for civilian applications, including agriculture monitoring and urban transportation planning. The leaked documents, however, contain time-stamped coordinate lists, orbital tracking data, and satellite imagery showing the IRGC directed the satellite to photograph Prince Sultan Air Base, Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan, the U.S. 5th Fleet Headquarters area in Bahrain, and Erbil International Airport in Iraq, all before and after Iranian strikes on those locations. Overhead imagery, though, only shows where something is. Identifying what it is, and doing so at the speed required by modern warfare, requires automated analysis. That capability comes from a second Chinese system. On April 5th, ABC News reported an exclusive based on U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency assessments confirming that the IRGC is using AI-processed satellite imagery produced by MizarVision, a Chinese geospatial intelligence firm with approximately 5.5% Chinese government ownership. MizarVision publishes high-resolution satellite imagery annotated with automated object recognition capable of identifying aircraft types, hardened shelters, fuel storage facilities, radar systems, Patriot missile batteries, and troop concentrations across entire regions in minutes, rather than the days or weeks required by traditional human analysis. The DIA assessment found that the IRGC is using these datasets not only for target identification, but for pattern of life analysis, tracking deployment cycles, maintenance rotations, and radar activity patterns to identify windows of vulnerability. This compresses the kill chain, the time between identifying a target and striking it, from days to hours. MizarVision published at least 6 detailed satellite analyses of Prince Sultan Air Base between February 24th and 27th, identifying the positions of Patriot batteries and aircraft parking locations. Less than 48 hours later, the base was struck, and one American service member later died from injuries sustained in the attack. The DIA has not established direct causation between MizarVision's publications and Iranian targeting decisions, but officials have described the correlation between publication timing and strike timing as a source of intense concern within the intelligence community. The third Chinese system addresses a different problem entirely. Satellites and AI provide targeting data, but delivering a warhead to those coordinates requires precision navigation. For decades, that navigation came from GPS, which the United States owns and controls. American electronic warfare systems can jam GPS signals over a battlefield, degrading the accuracy of any GPS-guided weapon. According to Alain Juillet, the former director of France's External Intelligence Service, Iran appears to have shifted its missile guidance systems to China's BeiDou satellite navigation network, which operates independently of American control. Juillet told the French independent podcast Toxin that BeiDou is the most likely explanation for a measurable improvement in Iranian missile accuracy between the June 2025 12-day war and the current conflict. During the earlier war, Iranian missile strikes had a circular error probable of roughly 50 to 100 meters. In March 2026, analysts observed that figure narrowing to 20 to 30 meters, an improvement consistent with upgraded navigation data rather than manufacturing advances alone. BeiDou became fully operational in 2020 after 2 decades of development that began because Beijing wanted an alternative to GPS that could not be denied during a crisis. The original impetus was the 1996 Taiwan Strait crisis, during which China concluded that Washington could restrict GPS access to degrade Chinese military operations. The system now uses over 40 satellites in a combination of geostationary, inclined geosynchronous, and medium Earth orbits, providing positioning accuracy comparable to GPS across the Asia-Pacific region and globally. The United States has no ability to jam, spoof, or disable it. If Iranian missiles are using BeiDou for terminal guidance, then the entire American electronic warfare infrastructure deployed to degrade GPS-guided threats, systems that cost billions of dollars to develop and deploy, has no effect on them. Iran's Ministry of Information and Communications Technology has stated only that Iran uses all existing capacities in the world and does not rely on a single source of technology. The fourth component is physically visible. The People's Liberation Army Navy has positioned the Liaowang-1, its most advanced signals intelligence vessel, in the Gulf of Oman within sensor range of the Strait of Hormuz and the broader Persian Gulf theater. The Liaowang-1 displaces roughly 30,000 tons and was commissioned in 2025 as a successor to the older Yuanwang-class tracking ships. It carries at least 5 visible radar domes, high-gain antennas, and signals processing systems designed to intercept radar emissions, communications transmissions, and electronic warfare signatures across a surveillance envelope extending approximately 6,000 kilometers. Analysts estimate it can track more than 1,200 aerial targets, missiles, and naval vessels simultaneously. The ship is escorted by a Type 055 destroyer and a Type 052D destroyer, a formation indicating Beijing considers it a high-value asset requiring protection. Operating in international waters, it is beyond the reach of American military action absent a direct confrontation with China. From its position off the Omani coast, the Liaowang-1 can monitor carrier strike group movements, aerial refueling corridors, radar emissions from Patriot and THAAD batteries, and flight patterns of U.S. combat aircraft. Multiple defense analysts assess that this data is being shared with Iranian command structures, giving Iran access to a real-time electromagnetic picture of American military operations across the Gulf. One analyst from a prominent American think tank described the vessel as a floating supercomputer, processing enormous volumes of data to map the invisible battlefield. The strategic value of the ship is compounded by a simple operational reality. The United States knows exactly what the Liaowang-1 is doing, but cannot remove it from the theater. Attacking or seizing a Chinese naval asset in international waters would immediately transform a regional war into a direct confrontation between the two largest military powers on Earth, which is precisely the dynamic that makes the ship so effective as an intelligence platform. The cost structure of this arrangement is where the strategic implications become clearest. The TE-01B satellite cost $36.6 million. MizarVision's AI platform processes commercially available data at near zero marginal cost per targeting package. BeiDou access is free because the system was designed for international use. The Liaowang-1 would have been deployed regardless of the Iran conflict because it doubles as a space tracking and missile test monitoring platform. China's total expenditure on providing Iran with a complete intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance architecture is likely under $100 million. The Pentagon, by comparison, has requested $200 billion in supplemental funding from Congress to fight this war. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth confirmed the request in March, and Pentagon officials told senators in a closed-door briefing that the conflict cost at least $11.3 billion in its first 6 days. Oil is trading above $105 per barrel, and the Strait of Hormuz remains functionally closed. Read that again. Under $100 million in Chinese intelligence support is enabling a war that has cost the United States over $200 billion, a ratio of roughly 2,000 to 1. China has not lost a single soldier, fired a single weapon, or violated a single international law in the process, because selling commercial satellites, publishing satellite imagery, operating a navigation system, and sailing a ship in international waters are all legal activities. The broader implication is that China has demonstrated a replicable model. Intelligence support from a major power, delivered through commercial and dual-use channels, can enable a regional adversary to sustain a war against the United States at a fraction of the cost. Every military planner observing this conflict is drawing the same conclusion, that matching American firepower is unnecessary if you have access to satellites, AI-driven targeting, and a navigation system the United States cannot disable. China is also using this conflict as a live testing environment for its own systems. According to analysts cited by Al Jazeera, the war allows Beijing to assess the performance of BeiDou guidance against American fifth-generation fighter aircraft like the F-35, while collecting data on American missile defense capabilities, radar signatures, and interceptor response times. The intelligence China gathers from this conflict will inform its own operational planning for a potential confrontation over Taiwan, making the Persian Gulf a proving ground for Pacific strategy. Washington faces three options, none of them clean. Confronting China directly through sanctions on Earth I Company, interference with BeiDou, or action against the Liaowang-1 risks escalating a regional conflict into a superpower confrontation. Accepting the intelligence asymmetry means continuing a war in which the adversary has persistent overhead surveillance, AI-assisted targeting, and unjammable navigation. Negotiating an end to the war leaves China's intelligence architecture intact for the next crisis. All three options carry costs the Pentagon did not anticipate when Operation Epic Fury launched on February 28th. The full picture amounts to this: a $36.6 million satellite photographing American bases before strikes, an AI platform identifying air defense positions from commercial imagery, a navigation system beyond American jamming capability guiding missiles to their targets, a 30,000-ton intelligence ship mapping electromagnetic emissions across the Gulf, and a $200 billion Pentagon budget request to fight a war that China is enabling for less than the cost of a single F-35. This conflict is not simply between the United States and Iran. Chinese satellite imagery has appeared on social media 48 hours before American bases were struck. Iranian missile accuracy has improved threefold between June 2025 and March 2026. A Chinese signals intelligence ship is sitting in the Gulf of Oman with a 6,000-kilometer sensor envelope covering every American military movement in the region. And the cost ratio between the intelligence provider and the military superpower it is working against stands at 2,000 to 1. Share this video, because this is the story that reframes how this war is being fought. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Is this a proxy war, or is this something without precedent? A conflict where the real adversary never fires a shot, but provides everything needed to make every shot count. And if China can do this for Iran in the Persian Gulf, what does the same model look like applied to the Taiwan Strait? The missiles keep falling, the satellite keeps orbiting, and the ship keeps watching.